Good morning. Well, for me it is. So I'm going to do a video on water management. Now, most of the water management that needs to be done on this property is not done. So what I'll be documenting here is what will be planned, what I want to do. A lot of it ain't done because I've been taking my time wanting to figure out like even just what I want to even do, what would be best to do. So, and I want to start by saying thanks to those who come back and watch. Right now at this point, I put up a video a long time ago, like a year or two after I started doing what I was doing real serious, because some family and some friends had asked what I was working on. They wanted to see it because, describing it, they didn't quite get their heads wrapped around it. And so I made that a very long video and posted on YouTube, because a very long, large video like that, it was just easier to share it that way. And some people found it, and which is really cool. And I was eager to share what I've learned so far. I'm not an expert, I don't think. I don't know of anybody in the Cross Timbers area doing what I'm doing, at least not the way I'm doing it. So maybe there's probably a reason, probably because I'm doing it all wrong. But I wanted to share what I learned, because I've done a lot of trial and error. I've learned some things, and I do believe that it's a better way to do a yard than growing invasive grass, at least. So I was hoping to encourage that, and so I did an update series of videos, and got acquainted with YouTube. I'm not a big social media person, so it was a learning curve. But according to the analytics, right now at this time, there's like 65 people subscribed or so, and it says only about 14 or so come back to ever returning subscribers to ever watch my videos on average. So to those people especially, thank you so much. I make these videos for you. That's who I make them for now. But this video, I don't know if you're going to get a whole lot out of. I'll just be honest with you. This video is for a very special audience. This is for my future descendants. Just in case I don't finish all of the work I want to do to manage the water here, I wanted to provide this for anybody who wants to take over after I'm gone. I've mentioned rebirth and regrowth as the key to nature, the key to permanence in permaculture. And there is a human that serves as a steward of this land here, even though it's not a huge chunk of land. And I'll give a few specs here. It's 0.8 acres flat. I've been trying real hard to make it 1 acre flat, but I just can't seem to acquire that last chunk of land. Nobody wants to sell it to me, so it looks like I'm going to be, the land is locked in here, this yard at 0.8 acres, and under cultivation, and I'm trying to recall from memory, is currently 0.16 acres in terms of square footage. So I got a lot of space I can expand. Now, some of that space is taken up by a house and a driveway and a shed, and so some of it will never be under cultivation. And I think the maximum that I can cultivate is like this is before I acquired the new 100-foot by 100-foot space. So prior to purchasing that, it was the max I can put under cultivation is 0.52 acres, and under permanent cultivation, because there's easements and things, so the permaculture section can be around 0.42 acres is what I could do if I maximize everything. So I haven't even begun, or I have just begun to tap into the full potential that this place has. And I don't want to expand too much, because the real limiting factor right now is water. I don't want to pay for all the water it would take to put that much land under cultivation. Not when you're paying like at suburban water prices. You don't have a well or anything like that. So before I expand too much further, that 0.16 acres can serve as a nice little seed bank, and I can keep that alive, and then build out the earthworks to increase the water storage in the land, and then propagate from there. And that's going to be a long process. So this video is for anybody who takes over after I'm gone, and because there is a possibility I may not finish. Who knows? I do work at a snail's pace sometimes. So I'm starting here in my zone 5, my zone of use, my wild space. There will eventually be things done to start getting water to drive in the ground here. I have done very minor things. So what you see here, maybe you see there's these logs, okay? So in certain places, I've thrown down logs to try to slow down the water. That was before I knew anything about permaculture. I just knew that I lived on the side of a hill and I needed to slow down the erosion. Little did I know, and I will publish a video at probably the same time I published the videos on the first 2 videos on water management. Little did I know that the that I don't know if someone else has coined a term or pointed out this technique, but it's like a poor man's swale, you know. Instead of actually digging out a swale on the contour line like, you know, all the books will tell you to do, you can actually throw down just a whole lot of plant debris. And if the pile is large enough, it'll break down and become like a berm. And if you lay it down on a contour line, it essentially does the same thing as a swale. The water comes down flowing into down the hill, it hits that contour line, it's leveled, and that slows down the water and drives it into the ground. Now, does it work as well as a swale does? I don't. Probably not, but it's better than having absolutely nothing. And this is being like a zone 5 space that I maintain to try to keep as natural and native as possible, to serve as an example for what I should be doing. It's valuable to me. I don't want to disturb it too much. For instance, I have a place deep over there in my sitting area. You may be able to see the white colored chairs through the foliage. There is a large patch of dirt, and it's a very special type of dirt that occurs in this ecoregion because it's like a mixture of a certain type of very rich organic clay. And there's a symbiotic organism, I guess is what you'd call it. It's an algae and a fungus, and it grows together. It looks like one organism when it grows. And when the conditions are right, it blooms, and this these jelly-like structures appear on top of the soil. Greenish, dark greenish, jelly-like structures appear on top of the soil, and I don't want to disturb that too much, so I have to be really careful. So, and I've got cedar sedge growing all up in here, and it requires a very specific environment, and if I let too much light in or add too much water, it could be gone. So I don't want to do too much, but I do want to try to, since this is where we're standing is the highest point in my property, this is where I want to begin to start trapping water. And what I'm probably going to do in the future is I never will dig here. I never will put in swales that are dug in. One, you'd have to get in there with a pickaxe, and you'd have to go in between the trees if you don't kill them, or you're going to have to actually kill some of these small trees in this elm nursery I have going. So I just don't want to do that. I want to keep the non-native species out, and then I want to lay down chop and drop logs, and I've got plenty of it, on contour lines. So that way when the water flows, it'll drive it into the ground at the very, very tippy top of my property. Yes, I said tippy top. Okay, now this section where you see this path 5 feet away from the fence's easement, what I would be doing is simply putting logs this direction, logs and rocks this direction to slow the water flow as it goes down this way, because it will actually go this way and as well as fan out this direction. I've been up here that's one of the best ways to actually start trying to figure out how you want to start capturing the water. I think it's better than getting an A-frame level and mapping out contour lines. Is actually come out here in the rain, and I got that tip straight from Edible Acres. Because it didn't occur to me to go put on a rain suit and go stand out in the rain and during a heavy rain and actually just watch how the water flows and start laying down logs and everything while the water is flowing. There's no better way to actually control it than that. And it is actually kind of fun. It's kind of like being a kid again, playing in the rain. Oh, look, acorns are dropping. That is a food source if you want to put in the energy to process them. You boil them 1 or 2 times, depending on the type of acorn, pour the water off, crack them open, mush them up, and eat them. They're good. Okay, so back to the water flow. Okay, so let's see, here's the corner of my property. There's the corner post right there. I'm basically standing right up in it. And the first log jam will go approximately 8 feet away from that corner in half moon fashion, because that is the contour of the land, okay? And I will do that all the way down this direction is the way it goes. So See if there's going to be a landmark. There's a trail right in the center. I'll take you down to it. We'll see it from different angles, because I have to document this right. But that's basically the plan. Every 6 to 8 feet or so, putting in log jams to drive water down into the soil starting this high. And this section of this zone 5 zone of use here is about 50 foot wide. So I'm walking along the fence line on the southeast side. And you can see that this oak tree kind of is at a higher elevation than below it. So not here at the oak tree, but the first swale will be on this section, on this side of the 25 feet of the 50 foot wide space. This behind this tree will be, that's where I'll start doing swales this direction. And we keep walking, and we'll come down to the corner of my property, or the zone 5 part of the property, zone of use. And this is the dugout. Let's see if it comes out on camera. If you go down here, it's a dugout 8 foot drop of a hill there. So we have this staked out hackberry, and that's where the wire part of the fence ends and the privacy begins. Hopefully that'll be gone in a few years. But this part of the property right here, I'm pointing right there, will be where my first swale will be, or log jam serving as a swale. Poor man's swale. Or lazy man's swale, whatever you wish. So basically, I'm not going to specify exactly where each specific swale will go, because generally you figure out where your first one goes, and then every 6 to 8 feet is what I had planned, along contour lines going all the way down towards this drop-off corner, and down to where the middle trail is, which is where we're going to go next. And I don't know if I'll edit out the walk over there. Doesn't take too long, it's a few seconds. But I like to try to keep these videos relatively short. So this direction was where we started, the highest point in the property, the corner. This is the, I guess this would be the east corner, almost due east. So going now due west, this direction down the hill is where it goes. Swale it all the way down using log jams. Now I would do one log jam and then wait, and then do another one and then wait. And I would not go so far as to eliminate the cedar sedge, because this part of the property I'm not concerned with capturing as much water as possible. Because on heavy rain years, this is the middle trail. This middle trail is along a contour line up to a certain point, and it gets on years that we get more than average rainfall. By the time you get here, even without swales, with all the trees in the way, they're already slowing the runoff. Slowering, I love that. So yeah, they're already slowing the runoff. So on wet years, and not even that wet, this little trail is just in perpetual water. It's why I have some stones thrown down, so you can actually walk in here without getting your feet too wet. So I probably wouldn't have to put a lot of log jams up before it gets too wet here, and you start to ruin the cedar sedge and this organism and the very rich organic clay soil I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So I've walked down the middle trail, and to my left is the Mexican plum garden bed, and I have done a video on that. My second video on water management mentions that there will be swales in here, and I'm going to cover a little bit of detail, because on these I know generally where the swales will be, and they will be proper swales dug into the ground. So when I mentioned throwing logs to try to capture water, I meant doing it all the way down to this point. So this middle trail, probably about 6 to 8 feet to the right of it from this vantage point, would be probably the last log jam you would put down. And if you look at this section here, that direction is the rock wall towards the house. Okay, so and the slope is this direction. So again, every 6 to 8 feet, I would probably do log jams. I probably wouldn't dig in this section either and keep it as zone 5 space. However, this section of the zone 5 space to the right, in between the sitting area that we have cleared out, it's a natural clearing, and that's where that special clay is. and the rock wall. This between has a lot of potential to grow things. I haven't done a video on it, but this is going to be, there's some male cedar trees that need to be eliminated. And once I do, it's gonna open up sunlight into here, and there's potential to grow some very useful human edible crops in there, and even domesticated crops. So this zone 5 space currently, I do have plans to try to turn it into more like a zone 4 zone of use, to where it's at least being grown for timber and some native fruit, and maybe even to zone 3 where I'm growing some domestic crops in there. So we'll see, but for now, it would just have log jams like the rest of the zone 5 space to serve as swales, to drive more water down into the ground, because this is the highest point of the property. And then when you take a right, when you turn around and look at the trail going back towards the house, the center trail, to the right, all of this begins much more cultivated space. Now, I've mentioned that in the Mexican plum area, we're going to have swales. And you see that it's fairly level here, so your first swale would be right about here is where I would do it. And once you have that one about every 6 to 8 feet, you can see the way the Mexican plums are planted. It will already line out where the swales are. But you're going to be able to fit, see, 1, around 2, 3 swales easy before you get down to the last Mexican plum here. And then there'll be another swale there, which I will be digging here very soon. So at that point, all those swales should exist. And this is the part of in the second video I'll cover. Once you go beyond this point, the second video will cover that direction as far as what's been done. And the second video will cover the water that percolates at the base of the rock wall, the 8-foot drop-off rock wall, that direction. So the last part in this video for water management, and this video I guess you could classify as the zone 5 space water management high point, because I have another zone 5 space at the low point of my property. But the high point, once we come back to this middle trail, we've covered this direction that way, and what we're gonna do in the Mexican plums, we have more zone 5 wild space here, and it's just more of the same. We're gonna go about 6 feet past this middle trail, and we'll put a swale in, log jam type swale, not digging, and then just do that all the way down. Now, in my log jam swales, what I do, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm gonna mention it now. What I do in these poor man swales, it's basically a log jam, but you can also throw kitchen scraps and other organic material, green material, which helps it break down faster. And it fills in the gaps between the logs and makes it more solid, a more solid barrier, like dirt would be in a traditionally dug swale. And that just helps stop the water more and drive it into the ground in front of that log jam. And if you ever want to dig a traditional swale, that log jam will break down, and you can dig in front on the uphill side of that log jam, and then any dirt you dig out, you can dump it right on top of the log jam, and it's kind of like a hugel mound on top of the ground, if you will. And if the logs are rotten enough and they've been there long enough, I've grown in stuff like that, and stuff grows really well, actually. After about 5 years, it's extremely productive. So now if all you have is ash juniper logs, it might take longer because that's very rot resistant wood. But if you're using deciduous wood, of course, but that's just general hugel mound information. So I won't cover too much of that. But yeah, we're gonna put log jams all the way down here in this wild space. And hopefully these log jams, what will happen is in the Mexican plum area, just on the other side of this, there'll be traditionally dug swales that go along contour lines and half moon fashion in that garden bed. And then the log jam part will just be an extension from there and follow along the same contour line this direction all the way to the easement near the fence through the wild space. But that part through the wild space will be log jam type swale, poor man swale, lazy man swale, and then it will meet up and match up into a traditionally dug swale in the actual Mexican plum garden bed, the more cultivated space where I don't mind digging. So that's my strategy for matching the swales between the zone 5 space and zone 4 space, because I just don't want to dig in my zone 5 space. Want to try to not as much as possible. And then that brings us down to the Mustang grape bed, where I have a log jam swale that, if you look here, you see there's dirt that I've dumped on top of it. Kitchen scraps have been broken down. You see the eggshells. The logs, this is old punky wood that I've thrown in here. This wood is like 15 years old. It's quite rotten. And then it's just broken down, and it's basically become as if I had just dug the dirt and dumped it here. It might as well be dirt, and stuff does grow in it. And it's just every year more and more stuff starts to grow in it. So eventually it will be, I'll be able to grow things, edible things in there. There are crops that grow in that type of, like if I just dump a little bit of dirt, like say a foot of dirt on top of this, there are crops that will grow in that real easy. A lot of gourds, squashes, and things like that can grow in that really easy. So maybe one day I'll do a, we'll see how that progresses, how this method progresses. But it certainly is slowing and stopping the water, because I've increased. This is much wetter than it used to be. And then of course, I think I've covered it in video number 2, the swales that we will have here. And then I just now, and in video number 2, I annotated it, because I actually shot video number 2 in the rain, or just after a rain, so you can see the water flow, because that section covers, like I said, you can see I'm covering this. It's already done. That section covers what has been done to try to keep the water on the property as long as possible, because prior to doing what I've done in video 2, no word of a liar, that water it was just pouring straight off the property. Nothing was setting here really. So I think that that concludes the part 1, water management. Part 2, you'll see the actual water flow stuff that I've done, including the pond. I did not go into detail in the pond. So part 3, I'll be covering, this is the north side, the northernmost part of the properties for now. And I will be covering some detail about the pond, what I did to build the pond, and where the flow of water goes after it leaves the pond.